Welcome back to the Who Am I podcast. As we are recording, this would be episode, I believe, 19. But who knows what order they come out. I'm Dom. That's Brady.
What's up?
We have a special guest here today. And no, I'm not talking about Bernard. I'm talking about Colin. Colin Coos over here.
What's going on?
Colin has been a big part of my life, a big part of Brady's life. We're so thankful that he's here. Yeah. We just got a whole bunch of Mexican food. I'm still full. Colin wants more fruit snacks.
No. Yeah, I'm stuffed, man. That was really delicious, though. It was really amazing.
It was really good. We met a really cool waiter.
Carlos. He immediately, I think maybe he saw us praying, but he immediately came over and asked him where he was from. He said Dominican Republic. And he quickly just mentioned, he was like, I love God. And he was so passionate about his faith. And it was cool to just start immediately. He was talking about his faith. And he even said to us, he's like, I'm going to take good care of y'all tonight. And it was a really good time.
He was so excited to just see people praying, and he was so grateful to be our server. He was awesome. He's incredible. So, Carlos, shout out Carlos. I'm gonna go back and see you.
Carlos at Taco Boy.
Carlos at, I don't know. Maybe we should.
Wasn't it Taco Boy?
Yeah, but I don't know if he would want us to disclose the information.
I don't.
Yeah,
Carlos.
Well,
that's fine.
Well, you should ask him if it's fine. But that is not our special guest. Our special guest is Colin. Just some things about Colin that I will say, and then I'll let him share some more about himself. He's probably one of the most joyful people that I've ever met. And I mean that sincerely. He's had some crazy external circumstances and has really had so much joy and peace and even trust, although he doesn't know it, trust in the middle of some really, really hard trials. And it's been an inspiration to me and to so many people in our friend group. And God is doing radical things in his life right now. And it's just been a blessing to watch and to have him shine his light on me, on Brady, on everyone around. He's an incredible soul.
Appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
Thanks. I mean, even hearing that is it's definitely hard to hear because, for me personally, it's easy to be that way when you're around people that inspire you to be better and to just be able to come into my own skin and shed new skin and be here has been such a blessing, and meeting you two has been life-changing for me. And I'm just grateful for you guys. You guys have become friends that I consider to be lifelong friends, even though we've only known each other short amount of time. And I prayed for people like you in my life, and I'm just so grateful that you guys came into my life. And it's just it's been fun hanging out with you guys. So it's I'm happy to have come on this podcast, even though they dropped it on me pretty quickly. So I didn't
just
know
a couple hours ago.
Yeah. I didn't know I was coming on it, but I'm super grateful to be here and sharing this time with you guys and learning with you guys. So thank you for having me. And like I said, I'm glad we're friends, man. You guys are my boys, so appreciate that.
Like we said, we just me and Dom have been so impacted in our life by God and been on a journey. All of our journeys are different, but I think in some ways our journeys have been somewhat similar, Colin. And even just finding out that me and you went to the same university, didn't know each other. I know University of Arizona is massive, but you knew one of my best friends, Alan. You were in his same fraternity a year below me, and it's just full circle. And this is just a conversation, and like so many of the conversations we've already had, it's brought me and Dom so much joy. So I know that someone listening will hear your story and be impacted. I can guarantee you that one person will hear your story and be like, whoa, that's crazy. So, yeah, no, Dom, how you want to start this one?
Well, I know Colin pretty well. I do know Colin pretty well, but the people listening don't. Maybe some of them do, but some of them don't. And so, who are you? That's a question to start with, and you can break that down. I think it's always a working definition, but right now, who would you say that Colin Coos is?
I think when I think about who I am, I know that I'm a joyful person for sure, but I know that at the end of the day, I've been a sinner throughout my life, and now I just try to take every day by day, and try to work on being a better person. So when I think about who I am, I just think that my impact that I want to have, and that's truly to help people and just give back and try to, whatever that may look like on a day-to-day basis, bring someone joy on my day-to-day basis. And I think throughout my life, I've always been the type of person to try to spark conversation with people. And I think that just came out of like the love that I have for people. And I think that seeing the good in everyone I think everyone has good in them. So I think for me personally, like who I am is just someone that is trying to spread joy and love in a world that's full of chaos. And I'm still trying to figure out who I am for sure. But I'm enjoying the journey. I mean,
that's so good. And I'm so glad.
And I don't mean that in a corny way, like I'm not trying to come out here and pretend like,
no, it's real. It's real.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that Brady and I get to walk through it with you. And you get to walk through it with us. It's been incredible. How'd you end up in Charleston? whatever you're willing to share. I know the full story, but
so I came to Charleston in October. I guess kind of starting off, I've always kind of been a wandering soul. Kind of lived in different cities throughout the course of my life. That gave me all these different experiences. And before Charleston, I was living in Miami, Florida. I found myself always going out and partying and kind of becoming someone that I personally didn't like and that I hated. And I think that was bought out of me. And I think, as maybe the conversation continues, I can kind of go into detail about that. But how I ended up in Charleston, I decided to leave Miami kind of on the fly, and I decided to pack my bags and move back to where I came from, which was originally South Jersey, Philadelphia area. And as I was driving, as I was packing my bags, I just came to a conclusion, like on a week notice, that I was going to leave Miami, packed my bags and hit the road. So pretty much when I was driving through Charleston or South Carolina, unbeknownst to me, I was arrested on a cocaine possession charge. Pretty much driving through a traffic stop that was just a basic license check. And I, basically was at this point in my life that was super low, and I was partying a lot. And when I was driving through the state, I didn't know that I still had narcotics on me, I guess, and basically was arrested and had to stay in the state of South Carolina for a period of time that I didn't know how long it would be. And it just kind of put me in a place where I just, had to reevaluate my life. And that's kind of how you got brought into my life. But yeah, so that's kind of what brought me here. Which we can go into detail, but that's basically what brought me here.
We were talking about this at dinner before we sat down to do this, but like, I hope you see like the blessing that it was, like regardless of the circumstance, just how like God has used it. And if you don't see it as a blessing in your life, how much of a blessing you have been in my life and Brady's life and so many other lives here. And so even if you don't see it in your life, like I've felt it in my life, like how much of a blessing, like you are meant to be here right now. And so like, as hard as it might've been, and like literally turning a page in your life and getting brought back to that page and feeling like you can't go any lower, like it has been used for so much good already. And I just want to encourage you,
Thank you
in that. Yeah.
So, I mean, when I talk about that, you know, I can, you know, I like didn't go into detail there with that, but yeah. So when I was driving through the state, I was just supposed to be in Charleston for a day and was stopping to see my uncle. And then when I ended up getting arrested, it was just such a whirlwind of events that I couldn't even fathom what was going on in my life. But when that happened, I remember just praying to God and saying, you know, basically just putting my faith in God at that point in time. I had never really been to the state of Charleston or South Carolina besides once. It was in South Carolina, so it wasn't even near Charleston. Super scary. Got locked up in a detention center that was around people that, you know, were, you know, when I think about the people that I even met there, it was really interesting because they were all really good people at the heart of it for the most part. I mean, obviously I didn't have too many conversations throughout the time I was there to get to know everyone, but it was just, you know, it was just like really eye-opening that, and I feel like God loves everyone. And I think that people are in certain positions that, you know, it just, sometimes it's wrong place, wrong time. Sometimes it's a lot of actions that lead to something. And I think in my case, you know, I personally can kind of talk about it at this point just because I want to help people to, you know, avoid a situation. But I know very well, even though on my end, I didn't know that was going to happen. And it kind of seemed like a mistake at the time. And it was very easy to say this shouldn't have happened to me, but the sequence of events in my life kind of led to that. And I can say with a smile on my face, it was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. And, you know, it's something that I don't really like feel as if like coming out and talking about it, like maybe it would hurt my career standing or if people judge me on it. But that's okay, because I know when you're asking me who I am, I know who I am, and I know that I feel forgiven by God, and I've received so many blessings since then that it's just been such a joy to like go through the process that I had to. So I mean, what that process really was a ton of community service, counseling, just getting to meet so many people in the community that it changed my life forever, truly. And I'm just super blessed that it happened to me because I really felt like it was at that point in time for me to kind of quite literally surrender my life to God and know that there had to be change in my life. And I'm blessed enough that he didn't really give me an option for that. So, you know, that's kind of why I'm here. I didn't know that I was going to meet people like you because I didn't know anyone when I got here. So, and it definitely wasn't easy, for sure. And we can talk about that if you want. But yeah, I mean, it's truly been one of the hardest things in my life. But at the same point in time, like it was a blessing in my life. So I'm really fortunate and grateful for that.
There's so much to say. I think it's incredible that this is still all fairly very recent, and you're already able to see how this is a blessing. And sometimes that can take people a long time to see, and sometimes people never see that something's a blessing. What was it like when you're in jail and you've gotten caught for this thing, you're in a different state, and like how did where does your mind go there?
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes in a million places, that's for sure. So, like I said before, I didn't know that I had that on me at the time. So it was a surprise to me. And, I had been on a 9-hour drive, 8.5, 10-hour total drive. And I'm 8.5 hours in, 9 hours in. And, next thing you know, I'm getting my license checked, and I quite literally handed the police officer a bag of drugs. Honestly, it was crazy. I reached in my pocket, and it fell out, and it was just, or it was in my car, whatever the case may be, and it was just a whirlwind. I got immediately put in handcuffs and taken through the sticks of South Carolina to a place that I had never been. And then sitting in a cell, it was crazy. I mean, my life felt like it was crumbling before me. I was shaking with fear about my life. But, when I was there, I just it's something I share with you. I'll just never forget that there was this sign on the door that I told you guys about, and it said, "God's got you, son. God got you, son," above it, and I'll just never forget that. And it sat in my head for hours, and I was reading it in so many different ways, and I was like, "Man, God got me." Because throughout my life, I had been given breadcrumbs to make right choices, and I was just making poor choices in my life. And it's just it's just I'm blessed to even have an opportunity to continue to grow and live my life, and it's just something that it has been a whirlwind and fast, and it was something that I never thought would be me ever. But when I reflected back, and, I had to go to a lot of counseling, and started going to AA meetings and things like that. And I just, through that, I was able to discover that it was so written in the cards, and my choices that seemed innocent were, adding up. And just like when you have small incremental wins, you can have small incremental losses as well. And I feel like those were just kind of I don't even know how to describe it, just a whirlwind of things that were going to just add up, and it did. So, but I think overall, my situation is just not even bad, compared to so many others. And I think that situations like this can happen to anyone. So I'm just blessed that it was me, and that I can help people, hopefully, and just spread awareness and the severity of just when you think you're just having fun or whatever that may be. But yeah, I mean,
one thing, I don't think I've shared it on the podcast. I've been to jail, and so I don't want to sit here and ooh, what was it like? Like you're
yeah, and I don't think I'm some gangbanger either.
Yeah, no,
I mean, it's not like I think I'm some cool guy. It's it's not good.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it's terrible.
Amen.
It's definitely not cool.
One thing that I want to, though, applaud you on is, I've been to jail, and I did not change my ways. I was still, woe is me, in my self-pity, thinking I'm the victim the whole time. And so one thing that has been a miraculous thing for me to witness is, and I think jail definitely, it's a wake-up call for anybody, but just how you coming to a new city, with new people and like literally putting that life behind you, like starting a new life, like the radical shift in like who you were to who you are today. And like Brady said, like really not that long of a time. It's been a miracle to witness. And for anyone watching, we're going to have Colin back on here and in a few months, year, who knows how long, but his story has already been such a crazy, awesome testimony. And it's like still getting better and better every single day.
And I just really quick want to add on to that. Again, this is like very, very fresh. And the fact that you are still going through bits and pieces of this, trying to pick yourself up right now. And we'll get more into those details later in the conversation. But like so many people, Colin, you got to realize like would not be sharing what you are today this early on with what you're going through. So just even that is so courageous, and it's very inspiring. And like you said, you are forgiven. You are forgiven. And there could be people that hear this and they could judge you or they could say whatever. And think about, like I told you earlier, think about Jesus. And, you know, hey, if they hate on you, remember they hated me first. They hated Jesus first. I paraphrase that, but it's, yeah, man, you got our love, you got God's love. And yeah,
you guys are a blessing.
How do we meet?
Yeah. and I just, first off, I love how we met, man. It's amazing. But, you know, I do just really want to clarify, like, as far as just where I'm at, like, there's so much work to be done, and it's just not even, it's just started. But, you know, again, like, it doesn't make me above anyone or anything like that. Like, it's a super serious and deep thing, but it's just something that I want to continue to work on. And, you know, I just, drug and alcohol use is just so common in today's world. We're at the restaurant and, you know, those women were talking to us and they asked us what we're doing. And we said we're getting ice cream, and they almost mocked us. Like, because in today's society, it's all about going out and partying. And like, for me to even be talking this way is just so wild to me. It's just so crazy because I was going out 6 days a week, and it's to be at this point. But back to Dom's question, how we did meet. Dom, he's got this light to him that just attracts people. And I joined a gym that I can't begin to tell you how much that changed my life. But Dom was teaching a class there, and he teaches, it's called the Deep End. So go in there and do cold plunges and sauna, and it's just so good for the soul. And I go out there, I do a trial at the gym, and they're like, you can do these classes, you can do cold plunge. And I was like, all right, I'm going to sign up. I definitely want to do it. And I had honestly never done it before. Maybe I actually did it one time before, but Dom's just out there smiling, and I'll never forget it. He's just sitting there. He's like, welcome in, come in. I'm like, what's up, man? Like, how you doing? Like, you know, I did this once, but you got to get me. So he walks me through, and I get in the cold plunge, and it was just like a life-changing experience. And like, people talk about it, but like, I mean, it gives you a more euphoric feeling than you could ever have doing anything else. And, you know, Dom is there, and I'm like, what's up, man? Like, I just moved here, and he's just looking at me, and I'm like, what's up, buddy? Like, how you doing? And, we kind of get to talking. He's like, "Oh, you from here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I just got here from Miami. I just got out of jail." And dude, it was just like it was a friendship. Pretty much right away. But he had we get to talking. He tells me he roomed in college with a guy I went to high school with, and he played college baseball, and we just had this instant connection that. You know, I I think I specifically told him, I'm like, we're definitely going to be friends. And I don't know if he believed that, but, you know, it was just such a blessing to get to meet him really early on. And Devin was involved, who is another one of our friends, and just such a positive, impactful person, just so positive. And through that, then we just kind of all became friends. So
when you got out of the tub, I just want to say this because it was so funny and it stuck with me. You get out of the tub and Aaron was there too. And you go, Dom, you could like tell me to follow you into a remote forest and I would.
Yeah, dude.
So I was like, whoa.
And like, I didn't know anything about Dom. And as I've gotten to know him, he's just, I mean, both of these guys, I mean, are inspirations as far as just how they carry themselves on a day-to-day basis. And people are so attracted to you guys. I see you guys at church and kids want to talk to you guys and the adults want to talk to you guys. And it's just, it's so easy to be attracted to you guys as human beings because you have such a positive light that comes from you.
Thanks.
And
man.
I love hanging out with you guys because it's tough. You guys don't even let me be upset. So, I mean, like, it's just like, there's nothing to even be upset about, you know, because you guys have made me feel really welcome. And same with Brady. Like, the commonalities and mutual connection that we had, and the fact that we went to college, it almost felt like destined for us to meet. And it's been a blessing. I mean, the fact that we went to school together and didn't know one another, but now we're just hanging out, kicking it, and it's just been wonderful. And I look up to you guys in a lot of ways in a really positive way, you know, not in a godlike way, but in a you guys are role models in the community, and that's kind of what I've always wanted to be. And I'm just really grateful that you guys lead by example. So I respect that, and I think that that's something that I want to be as well. So that's why I'm kind of up here talking.
Thanks, dude. Thanks.
I love you, man. It's if anyone needs a hype man, Colin is your guy. But it's not hype. It's like I was thinking about that. You're so good at encouraging people, and it's very honest and it's raw. It's not like these, you know, fake compliments just to get someone to smile and like you. It's you have a knack for like that. Even just what you just shared really hit the soul. So thank you. Yeah, I love you, man. It's what I guess like since coming to Charleston, tell the audience a little bit about just the variables that have been at play with the volunteer work and with having to pay these legal fees and
so I mean, I think it starts with, you know, when you think you're having innocent fun, like that it is, but you have to know that with every choice you make, you know if it's a good or bad choice. I think everyone has that within them, whether they really tap into that or not. I think anytime someone makes a decision in their life, they know if it's a positive or bad one. And I think that just when I think about the circumstances that were dealt to me, I mean, the paying sane fines that, you know, pretty much I lost all my money through all the fines that I had to pay. The community service, which, you know, it's crazy because I remember when I was living in Miami, I was just trying to get involved in community, and I would ask God even at that point, even though my relationship with him seemed distant, and it was pretty much lost at that point in time. But there was one thing that was always on my mind, and that was to do community service because I genuinely love it. And, you know, when we're at church and they were talking about how community service and doing acts of good work doesn't highlight you or make you closer to God. It it shines on the situation in general, and it's really not about you. And I think it's a really healthy way when you're dealing with things to just make an impact, and seeing other people smile is just really, it's really amazing. And
I love that.
when you're doing community service, I love community service, especially after this. I mean, I had to do 100 hours of community service and tons of counseling, but the community service aspect of it was definitely, it was really inspiring.
Yeah, dude, one thing that I love that you shared with me is, like, there's one day you got done with community service and you like were so excited to show me these pictures with your homies there.
Yeah.
And so these people that he's working with at the community service places, like, they absolutely love you. And and that's one thing that you stressed to me is like,
we might have to get some pictures going on.
You're like, this isn't just because like I have to. Like, long after you were telling me, like, when the required amount is done, like, you still want to do it. And it's just been so cool to see you like dive into that and to love it and authentically love it. And I know like the joy that you bring to my life, you're bringing to so many people's lives that need it. And
yeah, it's so fun. And I did a lot of Habitat for Humanity work and learned construction and things like that. And then just volunteering at the homeless shelter, to the point where now I just walk around the streets of Charleston and I see all the homies walking around.
Recognize some of them.
Man.
Yeah.
And I love seeing them, because, you know, I think most people, especially in today's world, are 1 or 2 paychecks away from being homeless. And you have so many people out there struggling to make it on a month-to-month basis. It's like, if something bad happens in your life, like, boom, you can be in that situation as well. And I think that it's so easy to judge those people who are on the side of the road. But, you know, to be honest, I'm no different. Like, you know, I got put in a situation to kind of go back where you lose all your money. You know, I've been in and out of homelessness for the past month, sleeping in my car, random apartment rec rooms, couches. I mean, the whole situation drove me to a point where, you know, I couldn't apply for jobs. I, you know, didn't have, you know, I was working in a restaurant, and just getting by day to day is a struggle. And I think there's so many people out there that are just going through that to the max, that don't even have the blessings that I have as far as friends. And I think just in general, like, everyone like deserves a home, and like just doing the Habitat for Humanity definitely was amazing. And got to get you guys out there for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that whole situation of what I had to and have been going through has just been, it's been crazy, honestly. Eating food out of a trash can, just, you know, ramen noodles, and it's just not, yeah, I mean, it's not something that I would ever advise anyone to do. You know, I don't really know. I don't really know what to say, but yeah, it's not, I don't know.
It's been really challenging.
Yeah, it has been.
And like the positivity that you bring every day in the midst of that has been such an inspiration to so many people. And thank you for sharing all of that, because now when people see you and they see how positive you are, it gives them no excuse. Like, there is joy, and there's joy to be found in every moment, regardless of what's happening around us. You know, like, you and I have talked, like, I've been there too. I've been there, and like, I'm so amazed because like I didn't have joy. I didn't have close to the amount of joy that you have when I was there. And so, dude, just applause to you. And yeah, dude, it's incredible. You're an inspiration to so many people, especially once you share your story. And there's no shame in sharing your story, because like you said, we are all the same. You and I had a beautiful conversation about, I'll let you say the exact details because it was your story, but about one of the guys living on the street that you met in the homeless shelter, and how it was like, you guys are friends because like you are the same. Like, I'm not better than you just because I have a car or because I have a house. You know, like, we are loved by the same God, the same amount. And like, that is infinite. And so like, I want to love you. Like, what's up, dude? Like, I don't want to spit on you just because you're sleeping on the street. Like, I want to help you how I can. And you went and I think you bought the guy some food or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, you know, it kind of, from that, it kind of makes me think like my situation is nothing, honestly. Like there's so much worse. And on top of that, as far as who I've been as a person, like there's been so many mistakes throughout the course of my life and breadcrumbs given to me by God to improve my behavior and the way that I've acted towards people or myself. Like, you know, it got to boiling point, honestly. So it's kind of easy to now sit where I'm at and be like, there's been change, but it hasn't been easy. Like I told myself I was going to change a million times. I mean, you know, I had so many girlfriends break up with me. I had jobs lost. I had like, you know, all my money lost, like, but even that like never got to me. And that was a reoccurring cycle. I mean, the mistakes just kept happening. And like I said, as far as just where I'm at now, I mean, it doesn't make a difference where I'm at today, as long as I can help other people. And when I see someone on the street that is homeless or whatever the case is, like, you know, in general, just, it's not really about giving them $1. It's about like giving them time and understanding and looking them in the eye. And especially in big cities, we're blessed where we're living in a place that is beautiful and it doesn't have homelessness the way some other cities do. You know, I've lived in Portland, Oregon. You know, I've spent time in San Francisco, San Diego. Those cities have like rampant homelessness. And it's just like, in general, it's like those people are, they were either born into it or they were put in a situation that, you know, they're not as fortunate as some of us. So it's just like, it's so easy. Like my situation is nothing, honestly. So that's why it's easy to have joy. And I think it's about giving back and like just showing people that you care. So when I see a homeless person I know, it's just giving them love, saying, what's up, man? Like,
let's go, dude.
Now I want to ask Brady a question too.
Ooh, on the hot seat. All right, Colin, what we got?
Man, Brady is, I just feel like you are one of the most kind-hearted people. And Dom is too, don't get me wrong. But the selflessness that Brady has, I would just be curious if that's been you your whole life or Brady, I've seen him do acts and I don't want to speak on any of them without him kind of speaking on them. But as I've gotten to know him, just like his generosity to people and not even me, and mine is minuscule to the things I've learned about you. And even I'm so fortunate for you, but as man, but I'm just curious, like when that started, if that's always been you or like what inspired, how?
That is a good question. I don't know. Well, the first thing that came to mind is how you started this podcast with saying, I'm a sinner, just like you. I think my default is to be selfish. I think my default in my flesh is to protect me, protect my own. I think it is something that we all have to fight against, that we have to be aware that like if we are not living for the Spirit, we are going to look after ourselves. We are going to look for pleasure, look for these things. And I think of a verse Jesus said, it's better to give than to receive. And in my journey, it's been like maybe the generosity you're seeing, I think it's being amplified. I think there were pieces of it there early in my life, but that is because I had a mom that went to an all-girls Catholic school. I had a dad that was raised in the church. They taught me values from the church. I never was really taught relationship with God. And so it wasn't until I'd say my journey of opening this book, or these books of the Bible and and reading about Jesus and reading about how he lived his life. Because, you know, if there's anyone I should emulate my life after, even when I didn't have the faith I have now, growing up, I always thought like, I mean, Jesus is that guy, you would think. So as I kind of went through the Gospels and reading, I was very convicted, and that's God just communicating to you like people call it a gut instinct. I heard someone once say it's a God instinct. So I would have these God instincts, these callings to, wow, the Good Samaritan, like this person stopped on the side of the road. What if I was the person that needed help? Like, would someone come help me? And yeah, there's been many, many more stories, but I think like sometimes we're waiting for a calling or we're waiting for a conviction. I'd rather just read this book, but like in discernment, see how Jesus lived his life. What would Jesus do? I know it's cliche, but what would Jesus do? And do it based on his teachings from this book. And I think it can be that simple, and I think we can complicate it, and our flesh can give us kind of excuses to not do certain things. But it's funny because I was thinking of one thing and that I did recently for someone, and my first instinct was I really loved my own, trying to not like use their name and talk about this, but it was just something that I preferred for me, and I didn't want to share it with this person immediately. And it was very much a flesh thing. And then I was convicted, and I was like what? Like, I'm so blessed, and this person needs help, and I need to help them. And since I did that, it's been so much easier to keep opening up and to keep helping them. And I think that's it, is like, there's nothing special about me, you know, there really isn't. I am only special because of God and what God does through me. And so all the generosity, all the kindness that you just complimented me for, you're complimenting Jesus. And I want to be an image bearer of Jesus. I want to reflect Jesus. I am not Jesus, but I want to be like Jesus in this life. And I think we can get closer to that. And I think, like, I don't know, I didn't have a specific aim in my life before then. And now it's like, I have this specific aim, and like every day I can work towards, you know, spreading more joy, spreading more love, spreading more peace. And there's many days where I'm not feeling those things, but through God, through Jesus, I can ask for those things. I can not try and do it on my own power. And then that's how I can share that. So
one thing you said, I'm not going to use specifics of my story either, but there was a recent situation in my life where I felt convicted of something, and I knew that I had to have a really hard conversation. And it had been weighing on my soul because I knew this situation had been kind of building for a while, and I hadn't addressed it yet. And so it got to a point where I was like, I know that this is what God would do. I know this is what he would say. And so as uncomfortable and as against the grain as the conversation like was, like I had it. And like this heaviness that had been on my soul, it felt like I was like, all of the God-given power was gone. Like all of the God-given joy was gone. I was sitting in this like, I don't want to say darkness, but this heaviness from not addressing this thing that I should have earlier. And so I did, and I had this hard conversation. And since then, it's like my soul is so much lighter, so much lighter. And so, do you think that like your soul feels lighter? You were talking about yours was in terms of generosity, mine was in terms of something different, but same along the lines of conviction. If you feel convicted in something like that, do you feel like once you follow through, you're more generous, or you allow someone else to have their way over you having your way? Do you feel like your soul is kind of lighter, more free, more energetic, you feel more of God's fruits in your life?
100%. I can immediately think of all the blessings that have already came from following what I know what I know Jesus would have done in this situation. So, it not only feeds your soul, but I think the opposite of that, it's not only could lead to more guilt or shame, or you just, maybe walking a little bit heavier because it's on your heart and you're like, I know I should have done this and I didn't. But you could be missing out on blessings that God has for you through doing that. And we don't, again, you don't give to receive. And I think most of my life, to be honest with both of you guys, I would give to receive. And now I don't. And there is a difference, and you can feel it. And it is, I believe it's the way love should be and the way love should look like.
Don't let your left hand know what your right's doing.
Yeah.
I love that. And that's so true. I don't want to do anything so that I can get praise or get something from you. It's not a transactional thing. This is unconditional. I love that. Colin, I got a question for you. So similar to you, I had some drastic changes in my life from who I used to be to who I am now. And I know that for me, it was slow and steady, almost like convictions like we're talking about, where I would feel like this is something that like I know is not best for my soul. And I know as I learned more about God, and I learned that like, hey, this thing isn't in his character, and it's probably something I should trust him with rather than me trying to hold on to. And so like the change that happened in my life, it was seriously between me and him. Like I got arrested, I got in fights, I hurt people hurt me, and none of it caused me to change. And so what sparked authentic change in your life?
I mean, I think appreciate you for saying that too. That's it's not easy to say. So I really appreciate that. And that's something that I really love about our friendship, that we can have those open and honest conversations about who we are as people. So, I think what really sparked the change is because I kept telling myself I wanted to change, and I was, I wanted to change. And then I started telling my friends I wanted to change. And then, I would tell my mom I was going to change. And I was kind of forced to change because of things I lost. But at a certain point in time when you lose and the pleasure of going out and partying and chasing the wrong things and then you put yourself in situations from those actions that don't make you feel good as a person. And then you have to keep waking up from those mistakes. And they for me, they weren't just one or two things. Like there's so many things outside even that situation we talked about earlier that are just cheating on women, lying to people, just not being a stand-up person, not being the man that I knew I was. And it got to the point where it was really hard to look in the mirror. I lost friends over it, relationships, like I said, but at the end of the day, when you lose, I was in a relationship where I loved a girl, full transparency, and I drove that out of my life, and that killed me. And just my actions, like when it got to the point where I felt like I couldn't continue to be the person that I was, because that route was just so black and white of where it was heading. And that's why I say it was a blessing, kind of what happened to me, because A, it could have been a lot worse, and B, there was no other option but to make changes in my life. I mean, when you lose a lot, like, it really changes you as a person. And I think that everyone should go through some changes like that in their life. And it's so hard to, just like a New Year's resolution, it's just like easy to say you're going to do something. But I mean, it took years and months of my time. And then as far as just getting involved with God, like, he was always with me. But I think something that really touched me is just that he was always there. He was always there. And even when I ran so far away from him through fighting, being a bad person, and when I say being a bad person, it's like, when you're being a bad person, and it's just like, I never intentionally meant to hurt people, but it just stems from actions. So, and I think the breaking point for me was just finally saying, like, enough. Like, I just had enough is enough. And like, I felt like I was changing when I made the decision to leave Miami, just because I felt like I had to at that point, because I was already downward spiraling out of control at that point. So I made that decision to leave, but like, I hit rock bottom, and then like, that wasn't even rock bottom though. And like, that's really the truth of it. Like, you think you're low, and then there's lows. But in going off that, I think I can kind of turn a question to you guys, because I think I have an opportunity up here to kind of be in a position where a lot of people may be in a position like me. And that's, I think God and the way of living through God is in a lot of people, and they feel that. But with today's society and the fear of judgment and whatever that may look like, it's almost like frowned upon to not be going out and drinking and partying and going to church on Sundays. And what I want to ask you guys is, almost, to anyone who's listening, like, I'm at a very beginning stage of this, but I think I have role models in you guys to be like, it's easy to go to church with you guys because you guys are great people, but some people might not have that community. Like, how did you guys feel the not even called upon, just the comfortability to say, you know what, this is like who I am, and going to church? Like, how do you, and I know it's as simple as just go, but then some people may go and then it may not rub them the right way, or it might, our church is beautiful. Like, our community is beautiful here. So easy to be accepted. So a lot of people don't have that, especially in cities that aren't the holy city, really. So I'm just curious for you guys both, like, how you felt just getting started, or what that looked like, or opening the Bible. Like, and maybe you can highlight how we talked about how, falling asleep while reading the Bible and things like that, Brady. But I just would be curious to hear both your guys' takes, because I think a lot of people would start embracing God and trying to add that community if they knew, what that looks like.
You want to start? You want me to start?
Doesn't matter. You got it.
I don't want to say anything prideful or about myself. One thing, there was like 2 months, like 2 summers ago, where I left Charleston. I moved back to Asheville, and I had been reading my Bible and journaling every morning on my own. I didn't have community. And so that was a whole step in itself. And I've shared that on the podcast. But for you, I made a commitment in my head. I had been crazy depressed. I was drinking way too much, chasing women, and I tried everything, and I essentially had everything that the world had to offer. I had notoriety. I was a pretty big name baseball player. I had steady jobs that paid me decent money. I had women, like I had parties, alcohol, clothes, car, whatever. Like I had the things. And so it's like, if any of those would have made me feel content, like I had it, and they didn't. And so for me, I was at a very low point in my life, and I was like, I am just going to make a commitment. I heard that this Bible thing can like help a lost soul get found. And I knew that I was a lost soul. And so I was like, I'm going to read it every day for 6 months, and I'm going to journal when I do it. And so every day for 6 months, I would open my Bible and read it, and I would journal. And I went through this, but at first it didn't make sense to me. The words I was reading, it was hard. It was confusing. I didn't really understand it. But then as time went on, like I started to grasp it more and more. And like the words started to actually have meaning to me. And my journaling went from just talking about how I'm feeling to literally writing out prayers. And so after that 6 months, I've mentioned this before, and I don't mean this as like I'm holier than anyone, but there hasn't been a day that I've missed since then of reading my Bible and journaling in the morning or in the afternoon, just that day. But through that process, I had a mentor at the time, and he said, because he was asking why I was leaving Charleston, and I was like, because I just don't have good community. I haven't found like-minded people. Like everyone just wants to party and drink and chase the things that the world has to offer. And like now knowing what I know about God and about the Bible and about where I want my heart to be looking, I didn't have those people. And he said to me, if you don't have the community, create it. And a few weeks later, I decided I was going to move back to Charleston. So I was only gone for a month and a half, 2 months. But as soon as I got back, that was when I started our Wednesday Bible study. And that has been the biggest blessing in my life. And I didn't even know like how badly I needed it. I just knew that like I could not walk through this life surrounded by people who are chasing things that only the world can offer them. Not saying I don't want a successful job and a house and cars, because I do, but my priority is God. Like my priority is Jesus, and I wanted people around me who were like that. And so I wanted to lead in that. I wanted to authentically have relationships that I am pointing to Jesus, and hopefully through me pointing to Jesus, that's where your heart goes to. And that Wednesday Bible study has brought some of the most incredible, amazing people into my life. And like, I have a community that I would not change for the world. Because when I came to Charleston, I was like, I'll be here a year, maybe 2. Now there's no place in the world, there's no job that you could like move me anywhere that would make me like leave the relationships that I have here. And they are worth more than any amount of money to me, and they have challenged my faith. They have grown my faith. And so for anyone listening, like if it's been hard for you to find community, create it. And no one says that you can't. No one says that you can't lead that. It does take a step of faith. And I was terrified, and I was scared, and I was nervous, and I was in a city with a bunch of people who didn't always see things the way that I saw them. And not that I'm special or different, but it attracted people like that. It attracted people who wanted to search for why they're here. And like, it was never about me. And that was why it's been so beautiful, I think, is like none of it has ever been about me. I just wanted people who wanted to love Jesus. And he was so kind to put those people in my life, just because I sent a few text messages that said, hey, let's get together on Wednesday and talk about 1 Corinthians. And that's how it started for me.
I'm so grateful that God gave you the courage to start that Wednesday Bible study, because the trajectory of my faith was going up, but then that Bible study really, it felt like a missing piece to something like you said I didn't even know I needed. You can just ask questions. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to read these books and say, did they mean this by this, or what's this about? You know, that was always something like growing up Catholic. This is I'm going to get to your question here, Colin. Honestly, it is a fantastic question, and I am sure someone could be listening to this and resonate with, I have this urge, but I don't know. Like, that's a lot to walk into a church to open this book. I grew up Catholic. I grew up in Sunday school, Sunday mass, confirmation, having to take, like, I think we took like tests and stuff in Sunday school, and you're kind of memorizing these books, and when you're in service, you're kind of memorizing certain prayers, and I never really got intimate with my prayers with God, and I never really got to that level. And I had many breaking points in my life. So I agree with what you said. Like, you could have a rock bottom, but then if you're not walking with God, there can be another rock bottom. It can just the hole can keep getting bigger. You can keep almost digging a bigger hole in your own life. And that definitely happened for me. I just have a picture popped up of, like, I think it was 2019, beginning of 2019. It's a very intimate picture. I'm just in my bathtub, and I'm like in the fetal position, and I just feel like hopeless, straight up hopeless. Like, and I think back on that moment now of like, wow, like God completely changed my heart, and he took me out of that pit. And, there were years even after that moment where we were talking today about, like, running gave me an outlet to kind of start opening my mind to new things. But running can't do what God can do. Nothing can do what God can do. And then it got to the point where I was engaged to be married, and that broke my heart that I just could not follow through with that. And I knew I broke my partner's heart, and it was a type of emotional suffering I hadn't gone through. And in that season, a friend told me a week before the breakup, hey, there's this church I'm going to out here called Seacoast. And I just, I kind of put that in my back pocket. But this might help with the question about someone who's how can I have the courage to even go and do this? I had never been to like a non-denominational church in my whole life, and I went alone. I don't know how soon after, but let's say like a month after the breakup, I went alone to Seacoast. So I'm going to check this out. I looked online. I was like, I think this is it. I don't know. They have many locations. I don't know which one he was talking about. And so I think I even reached out to him and asked, and he said, here's the church name. This is where it is. And I went, and there's like, I don't know, like there's probably over 1,000 people at every service. There's so many people at this. It's a mega church. There's a stage, it almost felt like a theater auditorium. I'm like, this is not a chapel. This isn't like what I'm used to, a Catholic church. And people got their hands up, and like people are like saying things as the preacher's talking. And I'm just like, this is very different than anything I've ever experienced. But I went alone, and like I kept going alone for weeks, and I felt very alone, and I felt very hopeless. And what's crazy is, like, even as I was there, I didn't immediately buy in, but I remember too being so like looking around and probably judging people and like, why they got their hands up? This is weird. What are they doing? And it even just to praise God, that was a foreign concept to me. Like wait, to just start clapping for God or to put your hands up like we're at a football game. This is weird. And so even that took me months to like, so I guess where I'm going with full circle to answer your question. I think faith is I would love to sit here and say, yeah, I went one time and the faith you see that I have today that came from that one time, but that's not how it works. It's like faith grows and community grows. It doesn't just all come at once. It's like Dom said, even with the Bible study, I think the first time y'all met, it was like how many people total?
4.
Like 4 people, which is even a lot to start off. You could start with like 2, 3 people. And yeah, these things grow and like you said too, Dom, like God will put so many people on your path to confirm. I remember I wanted to join a Bible study. I heard about it and then found out, it's not going to start for 3 months. And I was like, I'm starting to read the Bible. And I remember I was thinking, I have so many questions and like, I feel awkward about calling certain people. I don't want to be like bugging them to ask them these questions. I was like, who do I ask these questions to? And then like a week later, one of my friends, we'd never talked about faith. I knew him for a few years out here. And he's like, I'm thinking about starting a Bible study with some friends. Would you be open to that? And I'm just like, whoa, God, like that's crazy. And so God will put the right people on your path exactly when you need them. Same with those gifts. Like any day I don't have peace or I don't feel love or I don't feel joy, I just tell myself like it's coming. Like God is going to give me those resources right when I need them.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that just one thought. You know, I think there's a ton of people, me specifically, I used to really, really struggle with daily anxiety to the point where is a meteor going to hit the earth? You know, is there going to be a war? Whatever that may look like. And I think for me, like one of the things that made me not necessarily like buy in, but when I started putting my faith in God, like even, you know, whatever that may be, like over the last few months, it's just lifted that weight so much. And I would just encourage anyone, like, it's not even reading through chapters of the Bible, just even opening the Bible or just being open-minded to reading a sentence, like, because everything in this, even though it's thousands of years old, just translates. And that's like what sold me, and not even sold me. It's just like what the facts were to me, reading about issues that happened thousands of years ago that are relative to today's time. It's just a timeless book, and it can help with stress. You have so many people on medicine, and not that that's not okay, but I think there's just healthier outlets. And I think that that's what helped me a lot, especially with anxiety and stress. And it's just, it's so peaceful knowing that everything in this is relative.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the things, I have 2 things written down here that I think really can deter people from taking that first step. Because almost like you said, like once you genuinely open the book and you're curious about it, like it speaks for itself. And like all 3 of us put together cannot speak better than God's word can. And there's no one on this earth that can speak better than God's word can. And so once you open it and you're curious about it, and like it'll suck you in, and it will help with your anxiety. It will help with depression. It will help with fear, with doubt, with whatever it is. And you will find that once you're curious about it. I think in terms of taking that first step to opening it or to walking into a church or whatever it is that I have seen so commonly is fear of man and distractions. And what I mean by that is fear of man is the fear of what everyone else is going to think about me. And so like if I'm in this party crowd, right, and I'm going out and I'm partying with all these people all the time, what if instead of Saturday night, like I'm not there and I'm in church on Sunday, and then I see those people at work on Monday and like, where were you Saturday? And I'm like, I wanted to go to bed because I had church in the morning and the preacher talked about this and this and this and it was incredible and like my soul feels good. And then all these people are like, you're so lame, dude. Like we had such a good time on Saturday night and you weren't there. Like people are afraid of that. And like that's actually showing someone else's insecurities. That's not mine. Like I'm over here trying to grow and trying to be a better human, and you're shaming me for it. And so I think that fear of man can keep a lot of people from taking that first step. And then the second thing, distractions. I think with cell phones nowadays, with work, with even family, like I don't ever want to be distracted from God. And I don't want to prioritize something else above him. And so like I think back on like when I did have social media and how much I would scroll through it, and like I was doing nothing for myself, but it would keep me occupied, you know, and like for years, I know like whatever, like if I even would have been playing the guitar, then it would have been more beneficial for me than sitting there for hours and hours and hours scrolling. And now I think like, what if I opened my Bible for all those hours and hours and hours I was scrolling? Or even just like you and I have talked a little bit about this, but like, what if I just learned to like sit with my own thoughts? I think that's such a scary thing for people, is they need to get distracted from what's really going on in their head. And that was actually a question that I had for both of you. But do you think that you numbed the shame that you felt? I think that I did, but in terms of like I used women, I used alcohol, I used weed, like because I couldn't look at myself in the mirror for so long. And like there was so much shame. And so rather than feeling that shame, I would rather like have a woman in my bed or drink or smoke some weed. And like then I'm not even really present. Like the lights are on, but there's no one home. So I don't have to feel that shame. And so I think so much of my authentic change came from like, no, I'm going to sit in these hard feelings, like this guilt that I feel for the decisions that I have made. I'm going to sit in that and I'm going to be okay sitting in that. And when I sit in that and I'm like sober-minded, thinking about like, dude, you actually did that. Dom, you made that horrible decision and you hurt that person. And you have to live with that. And then, like that's where my change came from, was rather than numbing all of the guilt and the shame, like I'm gonna feel it and I'm gonna process it. And then I can start to actually take tangible steps to make a different decision the next time I'm in that circumstance. And so do you think that like you numbed so much of that guilt and shame for so long?
You got it.
I remember when I would do coke in college. I mean, we do it in the bathroom. And I think even just that concept says a lot. Like you're hidden. You're not, and you don't want the other people at the party to see you doing that. I put it under my lip because it would kind of numb my mouth. So 100% like physically numb myself, emotionally numb myself. To turn around, I think it felt like I had just gone so far, so far that even if I turned around, it would take so long to get back to maybe the joyful, peaceful kid I was in childhood. And yeah, so definitely shame. But as you're saying it, it made me also think I started to be so angry with the church. I started to be so angry with religion. And trust me, my eyes are open to many different hypocrisies and people not walking it out in church and in religions. And I know that there is a lot of evil that can still come from those establishments. But I think it was easy to say, for me at least, that all religion is bad. All churches are evil. They're all just trying to take my money. They're all just, it was easier for me to put blame onto them as opposed to look at what I had done. And I think I got so used to that excuse. I hadn't stepped into church for, I don't even know how many years. It was a long time, probably over 5 years. And I think you can start building excuses like that piled on with your shame. And then you can start almost getting comfortable in your sin, where you're just so deep in it that it really does take you just got caught with these narcotics, you're going to jail. Or in my case, like, hey, you're like the woman of your dreams and this life you thought you were going to have. Nope, it's gone. So yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of shame there. And
so
yeah. What do you got, Colin?
So, the first thing that comes to my mind where I was kind of at, I remember I was in Miami and it was Sunday and we were at a beach, not necessarily club, but like a members only type place. And we're sitting there on the beach and someone who I was friends with told me, yeah, I'm going to church later. And where I was at in my life, I quite literally said, where is that? Thinking it was a club. Literally. I was like, oh, you're going to church? I've never heard of that place. And I remember like specifically saying that. And I remember when I was with my ex-girlfriend at one point in time, I boasted. I was like, I can do drugs. I'm good at taking drugs. And I just like think about those statements and where I was at. And it was just like, for me, it was a competition against myself of like how much I could push the limits. And it got to the point where it was just going out and drinking and partying all night. And just quite literally just chasing all of the wrong things. And, even going off that, I just feel like even during that, I knew I was making bad choices and I still was doing it. And I'm lucky and blessed in the sense of like, I felt like God was always there with me and talking to me. And he protected me through so many poor choices that, I had guns held to me at one point. I got mugged in New York City one time. The list of stories I could tell you as far as just the mistakes that I made. I got in bar fights, and like those were all from being under the influence and just like thinking it was fun until it wasn't. And it's tough because at a certain point you have to identify yourself as the issue, and it's just the answer was always right there with me. And it's just so amazing to know that. And like the forgiveness that I've felt has led me to feel beautiful inside. And like, I couldn't even forgive myself, but God can forgive. And it's just I felt so much weight and anxiety, how you're talking about that, as far as just masking things. Like, I always felt like because I was making mistakes, I like couldn't be forgiven. And my mistakes, like all those mistakes that I made as a liar, a cheater, you know, whatever they were, like even if I was doing it to myself, like let alone like I was doing it to other people, like, you know, that's even worse. But I was lying to myself too. So to just know that there is forgiveness is another reason why I feel like it's so real, honestly.
One thing, and this just came to me, I wrote down, do you think it's ever easy? And what I mean by that is, like us three, like we hit lows in our life. Like we hit lows in our life. And like, at least for me, and I think for you too, like in that low was when I had to develop dependence on something bigger than myself, that being God. And so really in the lowest of low moments was when I really found God and I started to actually understand like who he is. And like, do you, like us three coming from that end of the spectrum, do you think that it's like a joyful circumstance for some people? Like where it's like this beautiful thing happened and that made me realize that, I mean, it's a beautiful thing either way, whether you're in the lows or the highs.
Ooh, that is such a good question. I mean,
but do you think like it happens to people in the highs of their life? Like just something that pops in my head, like when your firstborn child is born, like do you think anyone like gives their life to Christ when something like that happens, like something that should be such a high point in your life? Because I know for me and so many of the testimonies that I hear on a day-to-day basis, it's like I was in the pits. And like that's where I found God. And so do you think it's ever easy? Like a joyful moment, a high moment in your life when people meet God?
well, it makes me think of like the Lord being near those who are crushed and broken in spirit. And it's a really good question. I mean, a lot of the testimonies I've heard in mine, it's been a low point, but I think it could be, you know, possible. I was recently, I don't know if I told you this, but I was recently connected with a friend who I knew from LA, and I think I was on his podcast once, and he told me, he's like, hey, there's this guy I want to connect you with. He's going to run across the country. He's actually running across the country this year. And
for you who don't know, Brady ran across the country.
He did.
Thank you. But he's running across the country for mental health, depression. And I read his whole story, and it was almost eerie, because I was like, I went through depression for like 10 years. And there's one thing he said, and it was all the things he has tried over the years. But he didn't say Jesus. And I wrote him a letter and I said, dude, look, I don't do this. Like even me, where I'm at now with my faith, to like talk to a stranger about Jesus, I can do that now. And if it's natural and I feel the discernment, like, okay, this is natural, be authentic. Yeah, I love Jesus, and start talking about it. But I felt very called to just say that to him, like, hey, just try it. Yeah. You didn't say you tried it. Just try it. See how that
works.
works.
Open the book, see what happens.
And it made me think, when I was in college, I got depression when I was 18. I went home. So I relied on family. Then I remember when my depression got really bad, I went to booze, I went to drugs. I didn't rely on family. And then I remember the third time things got really bad, I got a therapist. And I'm not saying you should not go to therapy or do those things, but
don't do drugs.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying do those either. But like those three things, while they can help, they didn't fix the issue. They didn't heal it. And going to God was like, God, like nothing has changed my heart the way God has changed my heart. And it's been something that like you can feel where you're like, I mean, I used to just not even have compassion for someone that is like doing this. And now I'm like, I want to stop and see how they're doing. Like,
So, and while it's on my head, I just wanted to say this. I think when you asked your question, the first thing that came to mind is, I think that when people have thoughts of just anyone that is religious, how you mentioned how it's low points, I think that's a negative connotation. Like I've seen like in the past, like pictures like on social media or whatever, like a girl's final worst stage is when she finally turns to God because she's already been through everything, right? Or like a guy who goes, it's like the typical, it's so cliche to be like, oh, did you go to jail? Like you went to jail, so now you turn to God, right? And I think that like that's like the tale as old as time, right? Like people like will commit sin and like they'll live their life and then it's just like, oh, okay, now I'm going to God, so everything's forgiven. Like, but like when you asked is if it is easy, like it certainly can be. And I think that I think that you don't want to get to a point where you don't have to hit rock bottom in your life to find God. And I think that's like part of the reason why I want to speak to people. Just like if you were to listen to this and you know me and you're my friend, or you're not my friend and you know me and you're even at this point, you've given us this much of your time, which I'd be grateful for, but like you don't need to go to jail. You don't need to lose your wife or your husband to find God. You don't need to put yourself through hell. You don't need to go homeless. Like you don't need to be low or bad because that's all. There's always going to be lows and highs. Like but you definitely don't need to go to that path. And I think that it can only help your day because there's just gratefulness in community and church. And like, that's part of the reason that kept me open-minded and inspired to keep going and hanging out with you guys, because like it is a positive community and there is no judgment. So even if you have that past, no one in general like can judge you but God. And from what I know is he's a loving God and he's a forgiving God. And that's why, it's easy to be like, oh, criminals go to God, but they're changing their life for the better. So it's never too late to change. I like recently reached out to people that I haven't talked to in a while just to be like, hello, family, same thing. Like it's never too late to do anything. Yeah. So that's kind of how I feel like it's, you definitely don't need to hit a low. And I encourage you not to be honest. I think we all stand up in here.
Yeah. It's like, one thing that I was thinking while you were talking is just, for me, I had so much pride that I needed to be humbled. And
same.
And so like that, my low points in my life, like humbled me. But like you're saying, like you don't have to wait for a low point in your life to be humble. And I encourage you, just like Colin said, not to wait for some horrible situation in your life to happen to be humble. I think of like all these people like in Acts when Paul or Peter was talking, or when Jesus would speak, and it would throw something in there like, and many put their faith in Christ. And it's like those many right there who just put their faith in Christ, they didn't have to, I mean, maybe they were going through very difficult situations and we don't know, but like you don't have to. Like you can turn to God in any moment. The highs, the lows, the middle, in between.
And it doesn't have to be like you're perfect either, or like like, and something I wanted to bring up while I'm on this to you guys to ask you this, but like, here's like a situation. Like, I don't know if I'm still trying to figure out if I want to fully commit to not having sex before marriage. And I'm starting to be more and more open-minded to it as I've gone without hooking up with people, and I've eliminated that part of my life and hookup culture. And that's came with drinking and blocking my mind out.
Yeah.
And I just like that's something like, I'm not saying you have to do that or not, but like, you guys are examples for me where it's like that area is just like so foreign to me. Like, you don't have to go all in to just be open-minded about something.
Yeah.
And it's not even a recruiting pitch to be like, this isn't us getting on here being like, come follow us in God. Like, everyone has their own journey.
Yeah.
And they may think it's nonsense if that's what they think. But yeah, I mean, like, even that, like, for me, I'm definitely not anywhere where I want to be as far as just where I'm at. And there's still so many questions. So when I hear that, like, that's something that comes to my mind, that it's like in no way, shape, or form am I perfect. I'm the furthest thing from that. Yeah. And I make mistakes constantly on a day-to-day basis. And like, but it's just so nice to be like, this is here for you and we'll always be there for you. So, and it's just like, it is always there for you.
Yeah.
And something else that like really changed my mind is just going into 21 days of fasting with you guys. And it's just like starting the day off with the daily prayer. That was something that before I even read anything, that's what I started with. Just a quick thank you, God, for today. Thank you for my family. Thank you for my loved ones. Prayed for people that may not love me still.
That's good, dude.
But it's just made me so happy on a day-to-day basis, just starting my day that way.
Yeah.
I found I wasn't not paying attention. I was listening to y'all, but I really wanted to find, in church today, we heard the Reckless Love song, and it's all about,
it's all about you.
It's all about you. No, it's all about the story of the man with 100 sheep, and one goes astray, and he leaves the 99 for the one. So I like to read it because I think it is that felt like me in my testimony. Maybe Colin, when you read these or hear these words now, you'll resonate with it. Maybe Dom resonates with it. But I think someone listening could definitely resonate with it, thinking that you've gone astray for too long, that all of your wrongs in life have just stacked up to the point where God's like, no, I'm sorry, you've stacked these up way too high. I can't forgive you. I can't love you anymore. And this is what Jesus says, the parable of the lost sheep. This is Matthew, let's see what chapter it is. Matthew chapter 18, and we can start with verse 12. What do you think? If a man has 100 sheep and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go in search of the one that went astray? And if he finds it, truly I say to you, he rejoices over it more than over the 99 that never went astray. So it is not the will of my Father who is in heaven that one of these little ones should perish. So I think that's the answer there. God doesn't want any of us to perish. It doesn't matter how much you have wronged others, how much you have strayed away from the design that God had for your life. You can turn around. It's never too late. And Colin, I'm very glad that you had the courage to turn around, to be here, to share your story. And this was, I am so excited to see what God does with this, because I think it could be pretty miraculous.
one thing we're going to start doing is we're going to start praying at the end of our episodes.
Before we do that, let me whisper.
I don't think so.
No?
I think we should wait on the other monkey.
Okay.
I think we should wait on naming the other monkey.
Okay.
And so I would love to pray for us.
Prayer time. Okay.
God, thank you for just such a special, special time. Thank you for the vulnerability of Colin, of Brady, God, of the intentions of all of our hearts here is, as Colin was saying, just to help, hopefully, heal other people, to relate to other people and let them know that they're not alone and that we all struggle in our desires to just be close to you, God, is to be more like you. And we are not perfect and we will never be perfect. Your son, Jesus, was the only one who was and whoever will be. And God, thank you for the forgiveness that you offer all of us and the grace and the mercy that is infinite. And as Colin said, it is always here and it will never leave us. And help us to receive more of that, more of your forgiveness, your love, your grace, your mercy. Help us to be aware that you are close to every one of us. Every one of us, if we are in the pits or if we are on the mountaintop, God, you are right there next to us, cheering us on, encouraging us, giving us the strength to get through whatever we are facing, always providing, never changing. God, thank you. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for the community of people you've put around me and around each of these two to my right and my left. God, I'm so thankful for both of them. God, I pray that the words that were spoken today can reach whoever they need to reach. And thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to sit here and just chat with two of my best friends. God, they challenge me. They encourage me. They push me closer to you. And God, I'm so thankful for them. Thank you. Thank you, God. Thank you for these men. Thank you for this opportunity. It is in your son, Jesus' name, that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, anyone who's listening. We are at 1 hour and 40 minutes. It is past my bedtime by a long time. Thank you to
Appreciate
Colin
you guys. Yeah,
for
thank you.
being the man. He will be back. You will see him more.
We'll talk more stories at
You
some
will
other
see
point.
him more. You will see him
And
more.
Colin, you did not cuss.
I'm giving up cussing.
Let's
I'm
go.
giving
Not
up
cuss.
cussing.
You did not cuss. We love that.
And that's it. We're out.
Love y'all.
Love you.